Sometimes it's not. Well, that, more often than not, that is. Right, right, right. Alan Cornfield. Okay, got it. No problem. Thank you for telling me. I mean, that's actually one of those things that I always appreciate so much because. Right. No, it was recently. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Make sure our streaming stuff is working as planned. Cheryl, would you do candles tonight? Would you be willing? So it's just Shel Shabbat B'Yom Tov is the only edition. The page number is 384. Yeah. So it should be as normal, simple as it goes, but just that one little addition there. I was gonna say, right? Aren't you a little surprised though? I was a little surprised in the best, exactly in the best possible way. I love being surprised in this way.
This is me not pointing a finger at you. This is me asking how we do it.
Yeah. I was going to ask about that myself because some of that I think is residual from the guys doing whatever they were doing. But my guess is that Bob is not going to exactly doesn't know what. Nor would she have been yeah, no.
People saying throw it out.
I think probably Shelley is the one because I think these days, as much of that stuff is funneled through her, I think it's usually the best.
Throw it out.
So we had, I had said early on that we had those big dumpsters when the guys were doing work, and we took advantage of that when we could because it was here. Yeah, for sure. But also, I guess the thing I would say is if we could mass what we think is garbage first, then we'll know if we need a 5-yard, 10-yard, or 20-yard. I was just going to say cardboard losers. I think you're probably right. I guess that makes sense, right? Because if I'm paying whatever it's $60 for 150 per week, that's not bad business, right? It's the reason the mom gets it. Really? Yeah. Somebody else I know also. Yeah, yeah, I know. It'll be nice when it's like this. No, I think it's. You're fine. Just careful. I regularly feel short. Like a couple of my B'nai Mitzvah students from like 2 years ago are now taller than me, but that just made me feel very short. Yeah, I don't think that was her. My guess is, but well, the question is like, whether anybody did any touch-up work.
Ask Tom.
I'll ask Tom.
Because I don't think that.
Honestly, when the holidays were going, I don't even think I noticed.
I didn't see that either. But
yeah, until you. Sometimes that's what happens. Like you only look in a. Yes. Yeah. It's. That was actually the original idea, but it shifted, and now I believe it's. Yeah, it's Rona is, and it's Misha Berach related. I think in the end, I don't remember exactly how they worked it out, but I think she counted that the Misha Berach is exactly 12 words. So I think each one of the pains will be one of those words. That's my understanding of where it's at. But yes, that's for sure. I mean, it's funny. I got used to being able to see out this way, and
I'm sure you miss it.
In a way. I mean, I think the thing that's interesting is, at nighttime, if you're outside of the building and the lights are on here, it's the most beautiful thing you can see because you see every one of them exactly as they're intended. But when you're inside the room, right, you don't see it. So I don't quite know what but I there must be some answer to that. But it's nice. It's nice. We also don't want to blind our neighbors either. That's a certain point. There's probably such a thing as too much light. But
I'll tell you, the more the conversation I have with you, the more I can, where it's concerned, and I think I'm gonna try to fix it before it becomes a problem.
Well, I understand that, and generally speaking, that's the way to go whenever we can.
Yeah, I tried to call him, and he didn't return my call.
Okay. All right.
It's not a-
No. That will we will suit that all. Let me just make sure I got my. Oh, perfect. Shabbat shalom, everyone. Huh? No, so Kevin actually was supposed to be here and he couldn't get out of the city. Yeah, it was that bad. It was really that bad. He tried to get to the bus, he couldn't get there. All the subways that he would normally take were flooded. He tried to walk, and he told me by a couple blocks in, water was up to his knees. He was completely soaked. No. And I told him, I was like, look, man, we always love to have you here. That's always the case. And but whenever it comes to our student cantors in particular, if it's a question of safety, it's not even a question, right? It's just do what you need to do. That's for sure. All right, I'm just going to close this door up.
How old is he?
That's an excellent question. I'll tell you one thing about him. I have no idea how old anybody is.
Right? Did you want to say that publicly?
Said what?
But publicly, I mean, he's younger than I am. That much I can tell you.
Is it everybody?
It's increasingly so. That's the one thing about getting older, right? Is everybody gets to be young. I don't know. It's funny.
Let's not pick on my age.
Yeah, well, no, we're not picking on anybody's age. That's part of the reason why I don't ever really ask anybody about it, because I find that no matter what I would think, it's not an indicator in any way of anything, right? It's I have met 90-year-old people who have more energy and more seichel. Yeah, it's exactly right. But in Kevin's case, I'm not actually sure. It's a good question. We'll find an answer one way or the other. So again, Shabbat Shalom to everybody and a Chag Sameach. This really is, if there is one thing you were supposed to do on Sukkot, the one major thing that is most important, right? Besimcha. You need to be doing it in joyful fashion, which can be a little challenging at, when it is outside like it is outside here at Sag Harbor. And, those that are watching at home can't see, but we have some stalwart people here who get extra bonus points for coming. But, but it's one of the interesting things about the holiday of Sukkot, as it's originally conceived of in the land of Israel. It's very tied to the land of Israel itself. And so much of both the Torah instruction and the rabbi's later extrapolation of that information is oftentimes with the mindset of this is really where you're going to live for the next 7 days. I'm looking at Mike and Margaret when they go back to Israel. If you walk around in Jerusalem, it really is the way that it is. But depending on when the holidays fall, if it's an earlier year, right? If Rosh Hashanah is Labor Day for us, then you get to Sukkot and it's still sort of mid-September and it still feels, like a thing. But as you can see, the world itself and the weather in particular is very is variable, and that is really built into this idea of what Sukkot is all about. It's on the one hand this joyful holiday, and it's also a reminder of vulnerability. The moment that you go out into the elements, the moment that you take away one wall and a full ceiling, there isn't a whole lot that protects you from the world around you. And so for our ancestors, certainly I think that was felt on a more regular basis because of the, way that life was lived all those years ago. But for most of us who've been lucky enough to live, in a comfortable enough environment for their whole lives, the idea of being out in the elements for 7 days and at the whim and will of our Creator and all of that, it's a lot. It's intense. And so, I think the more I think about it, the commandment to be joyful on Sukkot is on the one hand an obvious one, right? Almost we should think all of our holidays, right, should be commanded to be joyful. But there is a part of me that sort of feels like that deep down embedded in it is that actually it is something of a challenging holiday. On the Zoom. Okay. All right. I will try and help with that. Give me 2 seconds, guys. But the stream is fine. But did I say the word Zoom specifically? What is it called? Yeah. Tell me if it doesn't work, then we'll.
I keep my phone on call.
Okay, well, enough of me talking in any case. We'll move on with our service, and we're really very excited to be able to welcome Cheryl up to light and bless our Shabbat and festival candles. In our prayer books, we're in a slightly different section for tonight. Page 384 is our blessing, and page 384.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedishanu b'mitzvotah b'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat and Yom Tov.
Amen.
Amen. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat and
Amen. Sure. Nope, it's perfect. There, we'll get to that during Kiddush, but excellent. And let's read together on the bottom of page 384 in English before we sing the Shechianu. May these festival lights open our eyes to the joys in life, beauty that delights the eye, freedom to be ourselves, the knowledge of Torah that shapes our moral being, the heritage of celebration that unites us as a people. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, for giving us life, sustaining us, and enabling us to reach this season. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehecheanu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehecheanu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen. So, as I was explaining to a few as we were walking in, what happens when a festival falls on a Shabbat, in particular an Erev Shabbat, it actually cancels out almost all of Kabbalat Shabbat, which may be something of a disappointment to those of us that love Kabbalat Shabbat. Part of the inherent logic of it is that Kabbalat Shabbat is taking place in a sort of a quotidian week, right, in a normal week. And part of what I think actually Rabbi Morris used to teach it really every week, or more frequently than I do, that each of the Psalms in the end reflect a day of the week leading up to Shabbat itself. And there is a sort of underlying concept that, you know, there are certain things that we don't do, certain things we don't ask for on Shabbat that separates and is different from the rest of the weekdays. And then when there is a layered situation like this, all the more so that our focus is really about Shabbat and the festival itself, and that there are certain things that be appropriate any other time, but in these particular narrow moments, not so much. So we're on page 390, so you'll be missing Lechado D this week, but what we're going to do is to do a few different melodies from the 92nd Psalm, most of which would be fairly familiar. We normally sing on Friday night, Sadiq Katamar at the bottom, but we'll start 390. Well, I can't help them with that. Tell them to go to the website. That's all I can tell you. Yeah, because, yeah. All right, so we're on page 390, and we'll begin singing at the top of the page. Mizmor shir leyom ha-Shabbat, tov lehodot la-Adonai, ulezamer leshimcha elyon, ulezamer leshimcha elyon. Mizmor shir leyom ha-Shabbat, tov lehodot la-Adonai, ulezamer leshimcha elyon, ulezamer leshimcha elyon. Lehagid baboker chasdecha, ve'emunatecha ba'leilot, alei asur ve'alei navel, alei higayon bechinor. Mizmor shir leyom ha-Shabbat, tov lehodot la-Adonai, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. We'll skip down a few lines to the words Magadlu Masecha Adonai Me'od Amku Machshavotecha. Magadlu Masecha Ya Me'od Amku Machshavotecha. Magadlu Masecha Ya Me'od amku machshevotecha. Magalu ma'asecha ya. Me'od amku machshevotecha. We're now towards the very bottom where the Hebrew indents, just in the middle of the page. Tzadik kata hamar yifrach keres balvanon yizke shetulim bebeit Adonai Bechatzrot Eloheinu Yafrichu Od Yenuvun Beseva Deshenim Verhananim Yiyu Lehagim Ki Ashar Adonai Tzuri Velo Ablatabo. Let's read together the 93rd Psalm on page 391. We'll read it in English towards the bottom of the page. Adonai is sovereign. God is robed in grandeur. Adonai is robed. God is girded with strength. The world stands firm. It cannot be shaken. Your throne stands firm from of old. From eternity you have existed. The ocean sounds, Adonai. The ocean sounds its thunder. The ocean sounds its pounding. Above the thunder of the mighty waters, more majestic than the breakers of the sea, is Adonai, majestic on high. Your decrees are indeed enduring. Holiness befits your house, Adonai, for all times. We'll turn now to the Chatzi Kaddish on page 392, and we'll rise in body or spirit. Yitkadal ve'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Bal mahadivrach cherutei ve'amlich malchutei, B'chayechon u'b'yomechon u'b'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael Ba'galaha u'bizman kariv v'himeru Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach Lahalam li'al me'al maya yitbarach Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudsha brichu leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata tamihiran be'alma v'yimeru. Amen. Remain standing for the Baruch Hu on page 394. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. Please be seated. We'll turn now to page 396. We'll begin by reading together in English towards the bottom of the page. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Umavir yom umevi laila, umavdil ben yom uben laila, Adonai Tzvaot shemo. El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, Amari v'rahavim. Turn now to page 398, and we'll read together in English at the bottom of the page. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Ki ehem chayenu ve'orech yameinu, v'hem nege yomam v'layla, v'avatcha al tasir mimenu li'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Now on page 402. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך ובביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. Let's turn to page 405, and we'll read together in English towards the bottom of the page. Doubting is but the forefront of faith, a faith in the infinite growth of an unbounded creation. A doubting age is one of restlessness and discontent with what is current. A doubt is an idea that is still alive. To doubt that the past has uncovered all things is to express faith that many things are still to be uncovered. To doubt that we have grown to our full stature in knowledge is to express faith that we may develop into beings of such power and dignity that we cannot as yet imagine what shall be. We turn to Micha Mocha on page 406. Yabai by bim 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 bam, yabai by bim bam, yabai by bim 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 bam, yabai by bim bam, yabai ba 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 ba, yabai by bim bam, yabai ba 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 ba, yabai by bim bam. Micha Mocha bailim Adonai, Micha Mocha Nedar Bakodesh, Norat Hilot Osefel, Norat Hilot Osefel, Yabai by bim 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 bam, Yabai by bim bam, Yabai by bim 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 bam, Yabai by bim bam, Yai bye ba 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 bye, ya ba bye bye bim bam. Yai bye ba 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 bye, ya ba bye bye bim bam. Malchutecha ra'u vanecha, bokeam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam zeli anu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch leolam vaed. V'nemar kifad Adonai et Yaakov, ugolo miad chazak mimenu, baruch ata Adonai gal Yisrael. We'll turn now to Hashkivenu on page 409 at the very top of the page. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Ushmor tzeteinu uvoeinu lechaim ushalom ve'ata ve'ad olam. Ashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom ve'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Yerushalayim. We tune the Vishamru on page 410. Veshamru b'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, ledorotam berit olam, einai beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam. Ki sheishet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, uvayom hashevi Shabbat Shabbat vayin hafash. Invite us now to rise in body or spirit as we begin the Amidah together, and then we'll continue silently from there. The Amidah begins on page 468. Page 468, and as always, we'll begin together and then continue silently from there. And please go at your own pace, and at the end, if you're still standing, you may be seated. Adonai sefatai tiftachu fi yadi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Ose shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol Yehoshvei Tevel. Yase shalom, yase shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yase shalom, yase shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. We'll turn now to page 371 as we prepare to offer our Mishaberach, our healing prayer for this evening. As we do, we're going to think first of those in our community who we know are in need of healing tonight. Benzi Tepper, Allison Luckman, Malka Bat Chaya Sura, Michael Klinghoffer, Ame and Warren Cass, Rivka Bat Rachel, Leah Bat Naomi, Lorraine Danis, David Dowling, Sylvia Devora Bat Francis, Muriel Hirsch, Michelle Sawicki, Francis Kirschman, Shelley Newmark, Diane Axelrod, Gabriella Spicer, Barbara Kushner, David Kyle Klotman, Lorraine Davis, Bonnie Mahoney, Richard Busbang, Lori Nisanoff, Aaron Borbach, Carol Javna, Tikva Bat Avram, Philip Wessler, Paul Wax, Donald Borbach, Devora Batsima, Sarah Story, Barbara Schwab, Alan Zaretsky, Leslie Schifrin, Charlie Zweig, Michael Rosenblatt, Trish Schapp, Randy Wasserman, Sue Warter, Morris Kramer, Ann Baker, Jeffrey Schwartz, Kim Birnbaum, Deborah Block-Kroll, and Sylvia Orn. In addition to those names that I just read, if anyone who's with us here in the room tonight have additional names to share, we'll start on this side, and then we'll work towards the rear on this side, and just make sure you raise a hand so I don't miss anything. Of course, we invite those watching at home to add the names of their loved ones as well. And we'll join together in the Mishaberach on page 371, just in the middle of the page. Mishaberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mekor habracha Avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Again, Chag Sameach, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So, and you'll forgive me if I've said this before, if I've explained this before. So when I was younger, Sukkot was my absolute favorite holiday, actually, of all the holidays of the year. I find actually that's more common than I thought. I actually thought that was something of an unusual thing, right? People tend to focus, Pesach, kids, Hanukkah, quite obviously. But there was something about Sukkot that was very meaningful to me for a lot of different reasons. When I was growing up in the city, my parents, just through a series of lucky events and some smart moves, our apartment in the city has a terrace. And so for the handful of people in the city who have that opportunity, we built a sukkah there every year. And it was a unique thing because most people we knew growing up in the city, you had to go either to the shul or you had to go somewhere outside the city, right? It wasn't something you could do very easily. So that process of putting up the poles and putting up the decorations and being able to literally walk out of our apartment onto this terrace, looking onto the tops of the buildings on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, it was very special in those days. As I grew, eventually, my folks ended up getting a house in Bridgehampton, and so we spent more of our Sukkot years there after a while. So I had this very stark juxtaposition between the sort of city version of what Sukkot looks like and the very much natural world version of what it looked like out here. And one would think that there's going to be more of a conflict between those things, right? One is going to feel much more correct, right? The one in nature, at least theoretically in our mind, is going to feel more correct. We're out there in the elements. But the truth is, it's not any more so than the sukkah that exists on the terrace in Manhattan or the sukkah that exists anywhere, quite frankly, that is built, because the reality is the laws of the sukkah, generally speaking, are very strict. They're very contained in certain ways and very expansive in others. It's actually somewhat rare for the rabbis in that way. It tends to be actually much more controlled. But most of the laws of the sukkah are really about, again, making sure that there is always going to be one entrance that is open, making sure that you can see the stars through whatever schach that you are using. The schach that you use has to be of a particular kind of thing. It has to come from a living, plant of some sort of tree, but it can't be still part of that tree. So in other words, you can't build a sukkah under an already existing overhang. It doesn't work. It has to come down, but it has to still have some element of life to it. And so all of these pieces that come together in a magical kind of way will transport you regardless of where you are, at least in the theoretical, right, in the mind, to connecting to this experience of our ancestors, at least, again, theoretically, all those generations ago on the desert wandering around in these sukkot and these tents. Now, I won't go into this tonight. It's more for tomorrow. We'll just say there's some debate by the rabbis as to whether the sukkah is really what we're envisioning it to be or whether it's something a little bit more mystical. But again, sometimes you have to sell people on coming Saturday morning. So come tomorrow morning and I'll teach you. But in the end, really, what struck me about this holiday was that it was always one that focuses on the concept of, it's sometimes called Chag HaAsif. Asaf, if you've ever known anybody with that Hebrew name, it means to gather in. Right? It's an in-gathering kind of holiday. And conceptually speaking, all of the three major holidays of the Torah, being Pesach, Sukkot, Shavuot, they're called the Shalosh Regalim, the three-leg holidays, because you literally were expected to walk from where you were to Jerusalem. So you have to imagine, right, again, in ancient times, that Jerusalem filled with these Sukkot all over the place, like a real festival, right? A real festival in the greatest sense of it. But in the end, it's a holiday that goes out of its way to assure that nobody is celebrating it alone, right? If you think about it in your life, there shouldn't be, oh, God willing, there should not be a single circumstance in which you were celebrating Sukkot by yourself, okay? There's nothing wrong with sitting in a sukkah on your own, but the Chag, especially at the beginning and the end of the holiday, is really idealized as something where you're not just gathering in the living. There is also this tradition of ushpizin, of welcoming in a guest, an ancestor, a famous person, somebody who has passed on but who you wish is in the space with you. So as I was thinking about all this today, I came across a teaching by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, Zichrono Livracha, who passed away unfortunately not so long ago, but left behind a number of really remarkable teachings. And on Sukkot, he teaches this really great thing, which I'm only going to give you a little bit of, but he shows his Britishness at one point because he starts talking about the Beatles. But you'll understand probably where we get to from the beginning. So here's what he says, okay? Our main focus a lot of times on Sukkot, understandably, is the sukkah itself. But there's another very, very important commandment that goes along with the holiday of Sukkot. Anybody know what that is? What else are we supposed to do tomorrow? There we go. Margaret, actually, technically on Shabbat, you're not supposed to do it. We do it here as custom, right? The gathering of the four species, right? The lulav, the etrog, the hadas, and the arava. These four elements that we're told to bring together. That's really all the Torah says. Bring these things together. And even the description in the Torah is sort of confusing. Some of the references to what, for example, eventually become, myrtle and willow, not necessarily obvious exactly what they mean. It says, and even the etrog itself, right? The description in the Torah is a bit vague in that way. And it's the rabbis that really take this idea and they really run with it. So the question is, what is this four species thing about? Why are we bringing these four disparate things together? So he says as follows. He says, the lulav and the etrog, hadasim and aravot, the arba'a minim of Sukkot testify to the fact that Sukkot is, above all, a festival of rain. Okay? I promise I wasn't thinking this when I did it, right? Not just for Israel, right? But for the world, as we're told in Mishnah Rosh Hashanah, uvachag nidonin al hamay. Okay, we hold that the rainfall of the year is determined on Sukkot. Or at any rate, on Sukkot, we are mindful of and thankful for the rain that makes the trees, the flowers, and the crops grow. And again, all the more so when you're in the land of Israel, where water and rain is never guaranteed. And that, says Sachs, is the primary fact about the Arba Minim. the four kinds. But of course, over time, various forms of symbolism have come to be attached to them. And one of them, perhaps the most famous, goes as follows. The etrog, the citron, has taste but no smell. The lulav, the date palm, has, or at least the dates have, taste but no smell. The hadasim, the myrtle, have smell but no taste. And the aravot, the willows, have neither smell nor taste. And the symbolism is that so it is with the Jews. This is what is taught in this midrash. Taste represents learning. Smell represents good deeds. Some Jews have both. Some have one, but not the other. Learning, but not deeds. Deeds, but not learning. And some are like the poor willow that have neither. Sachs continues, and the midrash says, the Holy One, blessed be He, says that they may all be bound together in a single bundle, a single binding together, and let them atone for one another. In other words, make up for the lack, the place where they don't necessarily possess. Now he says this is remarkable, because what it implies is not only does a Jew who has learning and good deeds atone for one who has neither, but the other way around as well. A Jew who has neither atones for one who has learning and good deeds. Now this, he says, is a very, very powerful statement of the agudah achat, this one binding together of these four kinds, and that what counts is the we, capital W, more than the I. Our greatness, he says, as a people is as a people, not as individuals. Our greatness exists when we, quote unquote, come together. And so, as he ends with the words come together, that's his foray into the Beatles and talking about basically how, when they're together, when the four are together, they produce what is arguably the most important music, certainly of the last 100-something years, maybe of all time. But when they go their separate ways, even though each one of them has one hit, basically, right? Each one produces something of their own. For the most part, they never achieve individually what they were able to achieve together. And he points out actually that in each of their cases, right, in the case of Harrison, in the case of Lennon, in the case of McCartney, each of their singles that became popular was within a year of breaking up. So he argues, inherently that it was a sort of, vestigial relationship that helped that, right? They still were experiencing all the joys of having worked together all those years. And then as time goes by, as they separate more into individuals, they start to lose whatever that magic is. I'll leave that to the musicians to determine whether or not that's a fair or accurate read of the situation. But I think the essence of his teaching is at the very heart of what it means to be part of the Jewish people and what this holiday in particular means, and why I began by saying that it's a holiday that's not meant to be celebrated alone. I mean, truth is, none of our holidays are. But this is the one, I think, actually where the rabbis go out of their way, various means, midrash, halacha, practice of different cultures, and as we developed around the world, each of them individually doing something unique and something different, but all of them principally operating on the same basic idea, which is that when we are gathered together, okay, when we act as one, agudah achat, as they're saying here, we in essence, right, support each other in the places where we perhaps lack a little bit of something, right? And I think one of the most important things that he says here is that one might read this midrash initially and think, okay, there is a hierarchy here, right? There's the learned person who does good deeds, there's the learned person, there's the good deeds person, and then there's the nothing. And the nothing is just kind of carrying weight. But that's not what the midrash says. In fact, it says basically that actually all four are essential. Okay, all four together is the ideal. If any one of those elements is missing, then, for example, when you take somebody who doesn't know Torah as they describe it and doesn't do acts of good deeds because they don't know Torah, one can look at that and feel sadness for it or feel ashamed for that person or whatever it might be. But this teaching is telling us the opposite. You look at that actually as an opportunity, right? A person who doesn't yet know something is a person who has yet to learn. And if you take a learned person and you put them in the room with a person who does not yet know, right, what can be created from that interaction? And I think so much of what we do here at the temple, right, is so much in that vein. Okay, none of us, including myself, possess it all. It's not possible. Okay, and it's certainly not me. I guarantee you that much. I'm just one step ahead of you guys in most cases. I'm learning something before I teach it. But I don't know everything. I've learned more from all of you over the 9 years that I've been here than I did in the, I shouldn't say this on camera, in the 6 years I was in rabbinical school. I learned a lot of technically important things there, and I learned a lot of text, and I learned how to read text. But in the end, it's static. It's sterile, right? It's in a room somewhere with a professor. But in the real world, in the shul, on the street, during the holidays, during Shabbat, in the in-between, those are where you really see a congregation that is really alive, is one that looks around and says, if I am possessing of something that I can give to another, I'm going to do that. I'm going to find a way to give of myself and do that. And if I'm a person who doesn't yet possess fill in the blank, rather than feeling ashamed about it or unsure about it or unwilling to take that next step, I seek out and I learn. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen over the years, right? Classes taught by our lay leaders, okay? People, who take it upon themselves because they happen to know something in our tradition that they want to share with others. And how many times I have seen, again, people who came to me and said, my whole life I knew nothing about any of this, and now I'm in possession of this knowledge, of this experience. In the end, this idea of the Arba Minim, of the bringing in these things that seem, on the one hand, on the surface level, to have nothing really to do with each other than being things that grow. Okay, but in its essence, what is the teaching of the Midrash saying is that that's a surface reading. But if you look beyond it, right, if we think about it in the sense that every single entity in this world, human being and otherwise, has a spark of God in it. When you look at those four things that you're taking and bringing together, it is a deeply powerful symbolic way of saying that we are indeed, even in the moments of division, right, our goal is an agudah achat. And as I said over the holidays, it doesn't mean necessarily complete agreement, doesn't mean that we do everything exactly the same way. But if in our mind we are thinking along the lines of that kind of unity, that kind of connection with each other, then that is really the best representation of us as a people. And so whether this is your practice, whether you've done it, like I can still remember my grandfather taking me to the Lower East Side to get, lulav and etrog in some tiny, downstairs basement that I'm sure, God knows what it's used for otherwise. But for me, those were really special moments, and not just picking out anything, but looking carefully at each etrog, making sure it was kosher, making sure it was the best one we could personally afford. Right? All of these things are really ways in which both the Torah and the rabbis work together to create the kinds of rituals, the kinds of holiday circumstances that remind us of our core values in every direction that we turn. And symbolism is powerful. You can look around this room and realize it is one of the great, sanctuaries in all of Judaism, in its possession of all of the different kinds of symbols that we look at, and we're meant to feel something from that image. But Sukkot, I think, perhaps, more than any other holiday, other than arguably probably Pesach, carries this deep, deep, deep symbolism in so many ways and so many layers. And so I just love this teaching, and I hope that it brings a certain meaning to all of you. And I'll use this also as a springboard to say that if you are here in the area and you're able to come tomorrow morning, as I said, traditionally speaking, you don't wave lulav on Shabbat. Same principle, reason really why you don't blow shofar, which has to do really more about carrying things than it does anything else. But we've done it here since Rabbi Morris was here, and we'll do it tomorrow. But if you've never done it before, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, this is the service to come to. And I'll explain it in great detail tomorrow. It becomes a part of our Hallel service, and it really is, again, one of the most important mitzvot of the entire holiday is to take these four species and bring them together. And even if you didn't order one and you don't have one, we have here at the temple, okay? And technically speaking, you're not supposed to lend, it's another wonderful rabbinic thing. You're not supposed to lend them, so you really give them to the next person to use, and they give it back to you and all of that. But, in reality, it's a very special moment in our calendar, and one that I think sometimes because of the post-exertional realities of the holidays sometimes slides past us. But I hope this year that if this is a year, that you can make full use of this holiday. And even when we're limited in terms of being able to leishev basukah, to sit in the sukkah, it's in our hearts very much. So with that, again, I wish you all a Chag Sameach and a Shabbat Shalom. And we'll turn back in our Sidurim, our prayer books, to Aleinu on page 586 at the very bottom of the page, and we'll rise in body or spirit. Again, page 586, just at the bottom of the page. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're now on page 591. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו echad. Ask those in mourning, those observing yahrzeit, to please remain standing. Everyone else may be seated at this time. We first think of those who've passed away in our community in recent months. Bert Bitterman, Julian Busbang, Morty Schwatzky, Beverly Deshevsky, Jerry Goldsmith, Dr. Sam Gould, Sandy Greenwald, Dorothy Klein, Sean Leibowitz, Jeffrey Nagelberg, Marvin Schreier, Sandy Slip, Barbara Strasser, David Weinstein, and Danny Ebenstein. We also mark the yahrzeit that occurred during the last week from Miles Ambrose, Margaret Benjamin, Jerome Bloom, Joseph Barak, Yvonne Cohen, Alan Cornfield, Herman Eagle, Judy Friedman, Terry Friedman, Nathan Galperin, Ben Gauze, Margie Haddad, Georgette Huberman, Ida Kaplan, Esther Cosberg, Bernard Kulik, Joseph Kunkin, Vilma Levine, Jeanette Lowe, Paul Nelson, Gary Nussbaum, Fanny Peskowitz, Mary Rach, Rona Rube, Clara Simon, Katie Spitz, John Strong, and Shira Zeller. In addition to those names, if anyone is saying Kaddish for anyone I did not mention, I invite the mourners to join with me on page 598, and if it's your custom, you may rise as well. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayichon u'v'yom echon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael v'agala u'v'zman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach la'alam u'li'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudsha brichu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata ta'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may every one of their memories be for a blessing. Okay, please be seated. And again, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Chag Sameach. So the first announcement, of course, is a sad announcement, which is we're obviously not having pizza in the hut tonight. I'm sure that you all could have assumed that or gotten a message about it, but we are going to then have it next Friday night, okay, as we end the holiday. So you're welcome back then. And also a reminder to you that we now, thanks to some very hard work and a brilliant idea by Shelley, we have a really excellently constructed sukkah. It should stand very well against the rain, against the wind, so it should be there every day this week. If you want to come by and have lunch at some point or dinner or whatever it might be, it's open to use. Just the one thing we ask, especially for security reasons these days, just let us know that you're coming if you can, even if it's a possibility. Just let Shelley know that's a possibility, and that's just fine. And once the weather clears up a little bit, we'll also put the lulav and etrog out there in a container so that anybody who wants to come by and fulfill the mitzvah can certainly do that. Also, those for tonight who are with us here tonight, technically speaking, you can say the blessing of Leishev Basukah by taking. You have to have a certain amount of challah for it to count really as a meal. It's one of the great arguments the rabbis have. There's different sizes. So kazayit is the size of an olive. Kibetza is the size of an egg. So generally speaking, when it comes to what counts as a meal, you need to have at least kibetza's size, if I remember correctly. So if you'll grab a little bit of challah with you tonight, you can certainly go out. The challenge of leishev means literally sitting down. I don't think anybody wants to sit down on a chair out there necessarily. But that, again, is your sukkah. So use it and use it as well as you possibly can. I know it's going to be filled with Hebrew school kids on Monday, which is going to be great. But we hope that you will join us. Just a reminder that there is no oneg tonight. There's no kiddush tomorrow. This was a decision of several people, other than myself, I think, mostly concern for residual COVID from everybody being together for the holidays. So by next week, we should be back to being able to serve meals, but that just means that Torah study tomorrow will be virtual, so it's not going to be here in person. Services are in person. Torah study will be on Zoom only at 12 o'clock. Also, I just want to say, for those that don't know, a big mazal tov. The reason you don't see Shelly tonight is that her son Ian is getting married tomorrow evening, and as you can imagine, as the mother, she's got some things to do and some people to be with. So, you know, as hard as it is to tell Shelly to ever take a weekend off, she finally did it. So we wish her very much, on behalf of the whole congregation, our love and our hope for Ian and Allison to have a wonderful life together, as I know that they will, and I'm very honored to be officiating, so it's always a great treat for me, for sure. Reminder again that next Friday night is our Shmini Atzeret Simchat Torah celebration, which, we'll have a good time. I'm still trying to think exactly how to do that with our new building, but we'll have a great time with that. Saturday morning, Ben Rifkin will be called to the Torah as a bar mitzvah as part of our Simchat Torah and Shemini Atzeret service as well. And later that afternoon, Bonnie Mahoney will have a mincha bat mitzvah as well, which is a really wonderful, wonderful thing. And a reminder to everyone, there is an earliest point of bar bat mitzvah. Okay, there isn't an end point, and there actually is a tradition that if you reach 83, that you can have a second bar bat mitzvah. But actually, one of the great joys of my time here, I love teaching our young people for sure. But some of the great joys has actually been working with adult b'nai mitzvah, people who never had the opportunity, many of, in particular, the women in our community who grew up in different environments, who were not given that opportunity. It's a great thing. So if you feel like it's something that's beyond you, I assure you it is not. If you feel like you don't know Hebrew, I assure you Shelley can teach you that. Okay? There's nothing that you can't do. If you haven't done it, if you're interested in it even a little bit, please let me know, let Shelley know, and we will work with you. But it's a really great thing, and we wish both Ben and his family and Bonnie and her family all of the simcha as we look forward to next week. And also very important, and I'm sorry I removed it from the area, but just a reminder, we've extended our High Holiday Food Drive to October 10th. So we can keep giving, we can keep helping, and it's still very much needed. So we have bags left, I think still, we have information left. If you already brought a bag and you feel like you could bring a second one, that would be wonderful. But really, again, it's a wonderful thing to see the impact of this congregation on this community. And already we saw emails back from Evie and from the food pantry about how moved they were to receive what they received so far. So all the more reason, just let's keep pushing through, especially during this holiday of Sukkot. Let's do more good. Let's bring more, brilliant, wonderful things into the world. It's just a very, very important part of who we are. So with all of that, I'm going to invite us to turn to offer our festival Kiddush, which is on page 400 something. Get this here. Sorry. 480. Lost track here. Sorry guys, a second. There we go. 386. I was close. And we'll rise in body or spirit. 386. Vahi Erev, Vahi Voker Yom HaShishi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'am v'romanu mikol ha'ashon v'kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav. V'titen lanu Adonai Eloheinu b'yahava Shabbatot liminucha u'moadim l'simcha chagim u'zmanim l'sason et yom ha'shabbat hazeh v'et yom ha'chag ha'sukot hazeh zman simchatenu mikra kodesh zecher l'tziat mitzrayim ki banu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat moedei kodshecha Be'avav ratzon, be'simcha v'sason hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh haShabbat v'Yisrael v'hazmanim. Amen. Chaim? What's he? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamahotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Chag Sameach. We have these chalot here. This is the only food I can offer you tonight, so please do come and eat it. And for those watching at home, we wish you a Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach. For those that had the issue with the Zoom, I'll try to figure out what went wrong, but can only fix so many things at once, I suppose. Chag Sameach to you, man. It's great to see you. Do me a favor. Can you just tell me your mom's name, because I want to get it into our system, just in case you're not here for a Shabbat. So we'll say her name. And also, I don't know when you became a member, whether you got there was like a way to fill out also other remembrances if you'd like that then fill into the art site. So I can have Shelly get in touch. Okay, so remember your mom's name? Right. So I'm going to make sure that gets, first of all, into our system, and then I'll make sure that it's on my list from going forward. And could you just tell me one last thing, when she passed away? August 11th. Okay, and sorry, one last question. Was it before sundown? Do you remember? After sundown. Okay. For the Hebrew calendar. Stephen, thank you so much, and for all of your just wonderful support through the whole holidays and everything. You are? I'm incredibly jealous. My brother actually just went there. He's going to be there for most of this year. I think he's helping my dad with his program. As soon as I saw all the pictures you sent me, I'm like, it's the longest I know. It's the longest period of time I haven't been there my entire life. No. The truth is this. There's like, this is where it's always helpful to have people somewhere around. If you have questions, 90% of the time it will tell you exactly what to do. That's a great. I wish she was still alive to ask me that question. Oh, that's what I'm thinking about all tonight. That's brilliant. That's a brilliant. Oh, I love it. I know, but it really was like, it was one of these brilliant things I saw, especially during my constant background. Got it. I made one mistake one year where I sort of jokingly referenced Harrison as the least favorite Beatle, and then Steve Dickman came after me and was like, no. I was like, okay, I hear you. I know. I should have said a word. Totally right. Yes, they're all at the end. You're on a plane tomorrow. I will. I don't know if you're giving hugs before you hit on. I'll give you a hug. So I will also. I'll text you, Jonah. I don't. At the moment, all I have is his WhatsApp. I don't know if he has like a number. They're living in Michigan. So he's basically. Long story short is timing the thing sometimes works out beautifully. His position in Hunter Hillel was off at the exact same time as the person who was the assistant director of the program, my dad, quit. And so it's not clear whether it's going to be a long-term thing or not long-term thing or whatever it might be. So he's there now, and my niece Shula's with him half a year, and Shula's going to come home and be older. And they would have all gone together, but Julie, my sister-in-law, was last year for master's program. So it couldn't quite work. But Godspeed, he's working for my dad. So I think he and my sister have been able to do it effectively. I don't know that I can do it in a small bit. Let's hope not. Let's hope not. Let's keep it that way. Mishkana. I'll send it where it is. It's I always forget. Years and years and years. They used to be at Beit Shmuel forever, and then when COVID hit, Beit Shmuel stopped picking up the phone, and so they had to find another place. And so they ended up in there. They seemed happier. Although Beit Shmuel was great because it was like, are you sure? I think that's right. Yeah. I think that's right. But to the best of my memory, no, me too. Me too. There was a great board game when I was a kid called Jerusalem Bus Stop. It was like Monopoly, but with Jerusalem, and so it helped me learn all of these different, It's a complicated topography. Well, guys, safe travels. I hope that your weather tomorrow is not prohibitive. What time is your flight? 9 o'clock. Making here at 2:30. I know, absolutely. It works. That's just exactly what I said to Bob, and that actually is that. So I have to talk to Tom and figure out,
By the way, Jerry. No. I saw him here. He was talking about we had a phone, he had a phone. His kids came up to something. He answered my email. And then I sent another email to him.
All right, here's another. Can you send me the question? Because that way, at the very least, if I see him, then I'll say, okay, give it to me that way, because I think before they go back down to Florida, I was hoping to see them.
Or
So.
if he doesn't know, just.
Right, pointing in the right direction, yeah.
Go to a guy up and say, hey, Jerry,
We,
maybe you-
yeah, we gotta figure that out. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful.
I learned how, my jeweler taught me a different way of polishing, and I want to repolish everything.
Look, anytime that was for you, Jen, I appreciate it so deeply. That's amazing. I looked stunning. It looked
It
absolutely
really
stunning.
does.
It really does.
And,
Amazing. Who knew there were so many different ways to do this? You know, my dad is very much. He's also very serious about polishing silver. You know, he has his technique, so you'll have to tell me what it is so I can tell him too.
so is it blonde or?
No, at the moment it's still level. Yeah.
Okay, so I can tell my.
You can call it jelly green. I think the goal is for that to be sooner than later, but because we have it all set. It's just not yet.
My other question.
Yeah, sure.
The breastplate.
Oh, I'll tell you. Mostly because so the people that Howard chooses to pull apart, a lot of them are already in a position where the heaviness of the part is a challenge for them.
Yes, it is.
Yes, and so the breastplate both adds weight, but it also adds a variable. So in my experience, that's the only reason I've taken it off.
It was extreme, mine was long, it was extremely annoying.
Yeah, that's the challenge of all. Actually, the truth is, it's always a challenge, not just artists. Like no matter what, it's nothing that you could do to change it. It really is, unless you somehow or